was a long day, mostly of cross-examination of Jen McCabe. What did you notice about her, or did you notice that anything was different about her?
I thought virtually everything was different about Jen McCabe this time around. She seems much more relaxed. She does not seem, she's not taking the bait that Alan Jackson wants her to take. She seems calm in her demeanor. She's not trying to explain things as much as she was last time. And I think that's largely attributable to the fact that she's testified so many times at this point, and she knows what's coming from the defense. She knows that she's going to be one of the main targets. She was the last time. And so she's clearly, whether it's a combination of prepping with the Commonwealth and a better prosecutor, and probably just like her own, internal kind of preparation for it, she definitely comes off in a different light than she did during trial number one.
And so has cross-examination been any less effective this time because of that?
I think it is less, so far at least. I find it to be less effective. And, you see a real shift in the way that Alan Jackson is cross-examining her. And I think inherent in that is this sort of acknowledgement that the defense knows that Jen McCabe presented largely well to the jury on direct examination. And so they have to tread a little bit, lighter this time around, because they don't want to cross-examine her so aggressively, that their points get lost because the jury feels bad for, the witness on the stand. So, I think overall it looks completely different than last time. There were probably a lot more people expecting more of sort of the fireworks that we got trial one. But the difference between trial one and trial two is that nobody knew any of that. Even Jen McCabe didn't know what questions she was going to be asked, what they were going to be focusing on. Now she knows. And she's ready for the punches.
So it seemed to me like a lot of the cross-exam was like going over like inconsistent statements, like maybe more minor ones, but then really something I spent a lot of time on was that Jen McCabe apparently lied to federal investigators. Did you see that series?
I did.
And do you have any thoughts on it?
It's always helpful when you can catch any witness, that's not your witness in inconsistent statements, or, where they say, yeah, I didn't tell the truth here. The question ultimately becomes, is that in and of itself enough to basically what the goal for that line of questioning from the defense is? We're going to show that she's not credible at all. And look, she even lied to the federal investigators. Obviously, the jury doesn't know that. And so therefore, you should dismiss everything else she has said, for the entire day and a half beforehand. And I just don't know that piece of information is really going to help persuade the jury of that, because she's otherwise come off as fairly credible.
Okay, one last question is that Karen Reed just came out of court, and she did stop and talk to reporters today. And the first thing she said was like something along the lines of another instance of perjury, another day of Jen McCabe lying on the stand. And she used the word perjury, like she accused Jen McCabe of perjury.
Yeah.
What do you think about her? A, still talking, and B, saying that?
I mean, it just, to me, it plays to what the surrounding hype really of the cases. And obviously there's sort of a two-pronged presentation from the defense perspective, both inside the courtroom and outside the courtroom, because they're playing not only to the jury, but they're playing to the larger public as a whole. And part of that, especially with the defense attorneys being under the gag order, is having a representative, really be able to speak to what the defense is feeling. And that comes down to Karen Reed. So, I mean, it's so different and unusual. You would never hear it. Normally, in any case, you would never hear the defendant speaking like this or even commenting on a witness's testimony. But, this is not the norm.
Fair enough. Thank you, as always.
Thank you.